what social media allows you to do is to build relationships with people that you don't really know yet, but they know you. And then when that patient comes in, they trust you because they know you.
Sometimes like the best things happen when you don't really have any expectations. And I actually feel like it's the opposite now, where dentists are trying to blow up on social media and they're wanting to get the patients and stuff like that.
It's a personal brand. You can have a dental brand, so ABC Dental, that's a corporation. And then there's the personal brand, and the personal brand is Dr. Joyce, Tesla, and Elon Musk. Tesla doesn't spend any money on marketing. Why? Because Elon Musk has a personal brand that people follow and they listen to. That's so huge. Welcome to another episode of Dental Marketing Theory. I'm your host, Gary Bird. I'm the founder of SMC National, where we help you create, convert, and close more new patients so you can grow the way that you want. And today I have a special guest, Dr. Joyce. If you've never seen her before, it's probably because you're living under a rock. She's super famous online, has over 1 million followers, and she makes some great content around dentistry that's fun and the patients can interact with and that they understand. And she's grown her practice with social media. So you're going to want to stay tuned and learn not only her story, but how she grew her practice and how you can get some tips from her. And at the end of the show, she shares her newsletter that actually helps you break down why videos go viral. You're going to want to catch this one. All right, we are live, and I'm super excited because I get to do awesome things all the time. So this is somebody that I've followed on social media for a long time, and I get the opportunity to interview her today and talk a little bit about her dental journey. Dr. Joyce, thank you so much for jumping on today and being willing to share with our audience what you do and how you do it. So I would love to hear about how you got into the dental industry.
Yeah, Gary. I actually was one of those weird kids. I wanted to be a dentist ever since I was like in kindergarten. And it's because I come from a now very big dental family. But back in the day, it was just my mom. My mom was sort of the first dentist to pave the way for all of us. But she's kind of a kick-ass woman. She graduated as one of the few females in her dental class back in the day. And she went on to own her own practice. She did very, very well. And I just always admired her. She was sort of like a workaholic to the point where it's not what I want to do in my career, but she did influence me a lot back in the day.
Got it. So family, and it's so funny because I ask everybody who comes on this show, how did you want to get into the dental industry? And dentists and hygienists are typically influenced by their families. Everybody else, like me, I'm in marketing. I'm totally here by accident. So it's fascinating to always hear these stories, how they kind of line up. And so your mom influenced you to be a dentist. And then at what point did that become like real to you, to where you're out of school? Did you start a practice right away, or did you go and work somewhere else? Or how did you kind of get actually your feet wet after college?
So I actually did a 3+3 accelerated program at UOP. And so it's like the whole thing was very real for me in my head the whole time. And so I was like, I'm going to be a dentist. I'm going to be a dentist. I'm going to be a dentist. Because you have to make that commitment to be in this accelerated program where you go through in 6 years. And then I graduated when I was 23 years old, and I had basically never lived life. So I decided to go to residency in the Bronx, in New York, and just live there for a year. And I loved living in New York. I loved it so much I was going to stay, but I met my husband there. But while I was there, I did work in private practice. I worked in so many different styles of practice and kind of figured out what I liked and what I didn't like from each one. I never really wanted to be a practice owner, which is kind of funny because I think most people who come from a dental family want to own a practice. And in fact, many people ask me why I didn't take over my mom's practice, but she had like a little bit of a different style practice where it's mostly Korean speaking and I don't speak Korean. And also she worked so much and so hard. And I was like, I kind of wanted a better balance. And in my mind, I was like, well, I should just be an associate and I can just work 3 days a week and be happy.
That's so awesome. You should put that on a shirt. Be an associate 3 days a week, ... and be happy. Because there are a lot of people don't realize running a business have a lot of stress associated with it. And there are ways to be successful without that. Like for a long time, I feel like in dental, people thought like that was the only road that you could go on, was go buy a practice or go start a practice. And obviously you discovered something much different. What was the thing inside of the practices that you saw that made that light go off that this is what I wanted?
Well, in the beginning, I was happy to just play by the rules of other people. In fact, I really enjoyed it because you don't have to make so many of those back end decisions. But then the more I started working, well, first of all, I saw that I was very productive in the environments that were set for me. And I was like, oh, well, why am I only taking home like 30% of this? So it started off with that, but that only will take you so far. I think where I really decided to open a practice, even though I didn't want to open a practice, was just realizing I can never practice the way I want to unless I do it myself. Because even if, like, for me personally, I would have loved to be an associate and go to Pilates 5 days a week. That was like my dream. I never found a job that allowed me the freedoms to like implement certain things that I brought back from CE courses. It never like helped me blossom. It was like more so they just wanted me to come and work and make money, and can only do that for so long. It loses its like meaning.
Yeah. And then I know something recently, you've had a big change in your life, that you had your first child. How did that impact you? Because I know right now you've kind of called it out that your mom was very early in the female dental movement. Back then, when she owned her practice, there wasn't a lot of female-owned dental practices, let alone just female dentists, period. And now that's changing. So half of the students at a lot of these big dental colleges that are coming out, in some cases even more than half, are female. And a big part of that is parenting, and there's a lot of different things to think through. So how has that played a part in your journey?
Oh, having a baby really turned my life upside down. I actually didn't want to have a baby for a really long time because I wanted to have this career and build my practice and everything. And I thought he would just sort of like destroy it, which sounds horrible. But instead,
Yeah, but
I found that when
I think a lot of people think that way. I mean, those thoughts go through a lot of people's heads. Yeah, 100%.
And I would say that yes, he's changed the way that I practice, but for the better. It really makes you realize, like, what do I want out of this career? Because every moment that I spend at the practice is time away from the baby that I'm paying somebody else to watch the baby. So it has to really make sense. Like, you don't just go to work to make a living. I don't think. I mean, I'm 12, 13 years in, so I don't think that mentally I'm in the same place that I am, that a lot of people are at earlier in their careers, where they like really, really need the money to pay rent and all those things. Like, for me, it needs to make sense.
Yeah, and what things have had to change? Like, what things did you change being a mom that were for the better that probably wouldn't have changed if you didn't have a kid?
Oh, did you finish your sentence?
I did. Sorry. Here, I will do it one more
Okay.
time. They'll edit that out. So what things did you change inside your practice after having a kid that you probably wouldn't have changed if you didn't have a child?
I think what he's helped me do is figure out or narrow down the scope of what I want to do. Like, before, I think I did so many different things because I had time to do it and I wanted to just like do it all. That was like sort of one of my things on Instagram for a long time. Like, you can do it all. You know, you can be a woman, you can do it all. And I was like very much in that era. And then after I had the baby, I was like, okay, well, actually, I don't have a lot of time. What do I want to do at work? Like, what are the procedures I want to do? And how am I going to get there? Because like, I don't want to keep doing stuff that I don't want to do, because all I think about is the baby if I'm doing things I don't want to do. And then also, for me, I also wanted to start leaning into things that really bring me joy on the other end, instead, like, not just work in the practice, but things that I actually truly enjoy, which happens to be social media in a weird
Got
way.
it. Like
It's all tied together.
Yes, that's where I was going to go next is, do you love social media? Because you're really big on social media. You've done a great job. I actually started following you before, like you had a decent amount of followers at the time, but you've really blown up since then. That takes a lot of time. Most people don't realize that it's not just like, oh, I'm just going to film a video and everything goes viral, right? So tell me a little bit about how social media has played a part in who you are, and then also just building your practice.
Social media was born for me to grow my practice. It's a marketing tool. I'm very much self-taught. I didn't know what Instagram really was, besides like a photo filtering platform back in the day when I first joined. And I didn't know how to make videos. I didn't have glossy photos of myself, but I opened it and I just tried to figure out what was going on. Because sometimes like the best things happen when you don't really have any expectations. And I actually feel like it's the opposite now, where dentists are trying to blow up on social media and they're wanting to get the patients and stuff like that. But I put in my dues in the beginning, just like figuring it out on my own. And because of that, it was like fun for me to keep doing. And the moment I got my first patient from it is when I was like, ooh, this actually works. I didn't know why though. I was like, why is this working? Like this doesn't make any sense. But it was free. So I just kept leaning into it. And the more I did it, the more I was like, oh, this is actually fun. I'm like connecting with all these people. I would say, like, when I started doing TikTok and other platforms is when I started to realize this is like more than just for work. It's like a little bit of a hobby. But like my Instagram page, I don't consider my Instagram a hobby or a side gig, actually. I consider my Instagram as a marketing tool for my business, whereas like my other platforms are more just for like the brand and the influencer gig portion of my life.
Got it. So do you, how much of your success, if you were to break down your office, would you equate to Instagram and marketing on social media? Like, is it half of it? Is it 75%? Like when that took off, how much did that impact your growth?
It really was like a ramping up of success, like success, quote unquote. But I would say, I have to say that Instagram has really changed my life. Like, I wouldn't be where I am if I didn't have my social media. And not just like getting a sheer amount of patients through the door, but also having a consistent flow of those patients has allowed me to drop all the insurances and lean into cosmetic dentistry only. Um, and it's given me the tool to execute what I had wanted to do when I had the baby, which is like lean into the things that I really enjoy doing. If I didn't have that leg, I've honestly always had a very difficult time with traditional marketing. I've never really been able to close my leads, which is like, it's an issue when you're spending that much on Google ads. And I've never had success otherwise with my marketing.
Yeah, that's a really good call out, because what most people don't understand, I always tell people, I do run a marketing agency, but I tell people all the time, the worst kind of patients that you can get, or the hardest kind of patients you can get, are ones that don't know you or trust you yet, which are from marketing. And so they're just reading a review and then they're coming in. And those are the hardest. The easiest to convert are the patient referrals or doctor referrals, but you can't really scale those. So what social media allows you to do is to build relationships with people that you don't really know yet, but they know you, just like I feel like I know you because I've watched your content. And then when that patient comes in, they trust you because they know you.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like the best of both worlds. And I think it's amazing. One thing that I have realized, though, and I'm sure you've probably realized this too, is that most dentists are not made for social media. Like, they just don't want to be that outgoing person on social media. So if someone else was listening to this and they kind of feel that way, what is your advice to them? Would you tell them, get over it and go do it anyways? Or would you say, maybe figure out another person in the office? Or what would be your advice to someone like that?
Well, I completely empathize with those people because I think I was there. A lot of people see this end product. This is me being on social media for 5 years. I was not like this when I first joined. It was very, very hard for me because I just hated the sound of my voice. I hated the way I looked. Like, it was very awkward to speak to a camera, which is not something that we're used to doing as dentists. And especially when like your friends and family are watching, it's almost like slightly embarrassing to put yourself out there.
Yep.
But I do think that the more you do it, the more you get used to it. And so it's not just like, get over it, but you kind of do have to do what it takes for your business. And I think having like somebody who's the front face of your business makes social media grow faster. So like, you don't necessarily have to do it yourself, but it is so much easier if you're like the person that's representing your business.
Yeah. And you're so right. You have to overcome that and you have to find your voice. There's a lot of people out there that are like, I'll coach you to be the social media, but you have to go find your voice. Like, no one can really coach you. They might be able to tell you like, here's how to do a trend or here's how to do something like that, but you have to go out and really find that. And that's what you did, right? Like, you went out and just said, I'm going to step through all this awkwardness, all this, what are people going to think about me? My family's even pulling them up and probably showing them to you and laughing about it. And you're just like, who cares? I'm going to keep doing it. And I'm just going to keep figuring this out. And then you win at the end. So that's amazing. What have you found that's been the biggest driver in social media? So like, if a dentist is listening to this, and we have tons of dentists that listen to this, and they're listening and hearing you and saying, okay, I'm going to push myself outside of my comfort zone. Where would you tell them to start? Like what should be that first step?
That's really like a difficult question, actually, because I think a lot of dentists do get this wind where they're like, I want to do this social media thing. Like, if it works for her, it could work for me too. And to your point, I do think that every like form of marketing works differently for different people. And some people are not necessarily video people, but
Yeah.
I've noticed that it doesn't matter if you're like a girl or a guy. If you can be consistent, you can grow, but you have to be like a student of the game. And people try to make the content and they just try to go viral. And it's good to start making content. That's where most people start. I applaud that. But I think what dentists sometimes have trouble with is not just growing on social media. Is not hard. It's the second leg. It's getting those people who are followers to come into your office and trust you and give you their money.
Yeah. So let's talk through that. Like, and maybe let's do it from a point of view of not what other dentists should do, but what you did. So what did you do to turn that corner to go from, cool, I'm posting on social media, to I'm posting on social media and it's driving my...
Can you say that question one more time?
Yeah. So what's the thing that for you, so rather than thinking about somebody else and saying, hey, what they should do, what did you do that caused you to turn that corner? So if you went back in your journey and you started thinking about it to where, okay, I'm posting on social media, nothing's happening to my practice isn't growing from it, to now I'm posting and my practice is growing. What was that? What happened in between there? Like, what was that thing for you that really drove that?
Hey, sorry to interrupt the show, but I got a segment that's going to bring a lot of value to you. People have been sending in their questions to us, and we want to answer them live on the podcast for you. And today's question comes from Dr. Michael. Dr. Michael asked, should I cut my budget into year because of Thanksgiving and Christmas? And this is a really good question. And I'll be honest with you, most doctors do cut their budget at the end of the year. So this gives you a huge advantage, because doctors who are cutting their budget at the end of the year don't realize that there's other doctors that are a little bit more savvy when it comes to marketing, are actually keeping their budget or ramping it up. But what they do is they squeeze it into a 3-week period. So from November 1st to right before Thanksgiving, they're cramming their full month's budget and they're putting it in that 3-week period. Same thing in December. And what that does is it creates a ton of new opportunities because you aren't competing against as many people. So my recommendation is to maintain your budget, just squeeze it, and you'll get a lot more opportunities because of that. If you want to get your questions answered, send them in to askgary@smcnational.com. Now back to the show.
Oh, it took me years to figure out why things were happening. And it's almost like social media is such it's a mystery, because some people appear to be very successful on social media, but they're not getting patients from it. And mine was actually the opposite, where most people don't expect me to get patients, because a lot of dentists looked at what I was doing thinking I was just really, really silly. And like, there's just no way that she's getting cosmetic patients without posting any before and after photos. But yeah, it did take me a long time to figure out, like, why is this working for me? Because my whole life, I've never been like special to any degree. I've never been like the top student. I don't have any marketing understanding. Like, I'm not the best at anything that I do, except maybe I'm pretty good at social media now. But I realized there were a few legs in the Instagram. The Instagram helps you to, the Instagram helps you to be like a real person. And that was where I was excelling, is where people would actually like bank on me. They wanted to be on the Joyce the Dentist train. And I became very good at creating hype for myself out of nowhere, and making that hype like really amplified through the social media channels, where if you actually know where I work and what I do, I have a 2-chair practice in Costa Mesa. It's not the best location. There's nothing special about it. So it's like creating something from nothing is, I think, what I was doing. But I was creating I was creating a practice. My thought process for that was like, when you go to Disneyland, you have to go on this one ride. Like you can only go on one ride. You have to go on one ride. You want to go on Space Mountain. That's how I felt I wanted to make my practice seem on Instagram. It's like, if you could only choose one dentist, you have to go to one dentist only. If you want to go to Joyce the Dentist.
And so where you said, okay, people started wanting to hop on that hype train. What was the thing that they were hopping on? And I'm kind of presenting this from an angle of somebody that may have not heard of you before. or kind of, you go through all your videos, like what was the hype train? Like what was the thing that turned the hype train on for, I want to go to Dr. Joyce's office?
Well, I think if you like really break it down, my content is very educational. So you build authority in that way, and you bring the patients to the Instagram and make you start following them with the education and the value. And then the rest is like, you can do whatever you want. So as far as hype, like I would have influencers come to the office. I would have them shout me out. I would go on like tons of podcasts. I would get like all these random awards that I didn't even apply for. I would get like article features. I would post all of it on my stories, put it into my highlights. It's almost like I'm creating a brand for myself. And that's essentially what I was doing, which I didn't know I was doing. But the things just started rolling in, and I didn't really know what I was doing. But when I look back, I was like, oh, dude, I'm pretty good at making hype for myself.
Yeah, that's great. A great call out. What it is it's a personal brand. So and what most dentists don't realize, you can have a dental brand. So ABC Dental, right? And abcdental.com, that's a corporation. And there's far less connection to corporation. And then there's the personal brand. And the personal brand is Dr. Joyce. And those things are separate, right? And you can cross them over. You can post on both. But those are two different things, and dentists really struggle with that. The best example of this is Tesla and Elon Musk. Tesla doesn't spend any money on marketing. Why? Because Elon Musk has a personal brand that people follow and they listen to. And so you were just going out there and building on top of that. And that's so huge. And it's very, very impactful if done properly. Now, I have talked to different dentists before, and there is like an ROI side of this for some people. So the ROI side is like, how much time do I need to spend on social media every day to equal X amount of patients? So is it like every hour that I spend, I get 10 new patients? How do you break down the ROI of that side of it?
That's a question that I get all the time. The fact of the matter is I can probably, at my point, spend way less time than somebody who has 500 to 10,000 followers. And it's the part that I think people don't really get about Instagram or social media is that it's not just you're posting something and you get something in return, which is kind of how we think about things. You have to get your Instagram machine running in a way, like get things flowing. And so like, since I have things flowing, I can post something and it goes much farther than somebody who posts something in their beginning phases. Like hardly anyone's going to see that. So how do you do that is the question. So in the beginning, truthfully, people are going to have to spend way more time. And part of that is just learning the action that it takes to be successful on social media.
Got it. So you kind of have to go through the pain of zero ROI up front, where you're posting and you're putting in all the hours. And then eventually, if you stick with it, eventually you can figure it out where it becomes a higher ROI. When you get to that higher ROI place, right now, what would you say would your exchange be? Are you putting in 2 hours a day there, you're filming Instagram, and then you're getting 50 patients a month? Or is it a dollar amount that you're looking at? Like, how do you break down the business side of it? Or do you just look at it and go, I love doing it, I'm getting new patients and I'm happy? Or, like, how do you break that down?
I kind of am at a point where I'm like, I love doing it, and I get patients and I'm happy. I'm not really, once I hit 100K, I was kind of like, oh, it doesn't benefit me that much more to be at 150, 200. It doesn't really matter that much, except for like from a bird's eye view if a patient really is impressed by those things. But I just keep the machine running. I only have one day off a week. So I work clinically 4 days, and then Thursdays is my day off. And I do all of my social media on Thursday. So I have a YouTube channel, a TikTok channel, I have a blog, I have everything, like tons of platforms that I work on, and I do it all in this one day. As far as like Instagram, creating content for Instagram, a lot of it's syndicated between different platforms. So I don't even really make content just for Instagram. But I try to make 2 to 3 videos for Instagram a week. And then I try to nurture I actually think a lot of them are just my friends at this point. But I just try to like update them throughout the day, making stories. And people think a lot, like way too hard about stories, but stories are just literally your day. So it's like easy. You just take a photo, you put it up, and it doesn't take that much time. My time that I put into the platform is actually where I'm just responding to DM. That's where I spend the most amount of time.
Got it. Just getting back to people, getting back to people who are reaching out? Or do you do a lot of like brand deals and things like that inside the dental industry, or is it mainly just patient focused?
Yeah, I have a side business at this point. I think it was born like 2 years ago. So I didn't start off with my socials being a business, but it definitely is. Which I also work on Thursdays. But I try to keep the majority of that content on other platforms and not as much on Instagram because I feel like it can dilute the message a little bit and I want patience from Instagram. So I am very choosy about how many ads I do on Instagram. I don't think you can ask so many things of your audience. It's kind of confusing. So yeah, I have like a pretty decent side business.
What, I have a question for you. Why do you think Instagram is so much of a patient driver versus like these other platforms that you're like, no, it's more for branding and stuff like that? What makes those different for you?
So to give context, Instagram is my smallest platform. I have around 104,000 followers on Instagram. I have over 400,000 followers on TikTok and 375
Yeah, you're really close to
on
half a
YouTube.
million on. Yeah, you're almost at 500,000 on TikTok. Yeah.
Yeah, I have bigger platforms than Instagram, but Instagram is my favorite because it drives patience. I think it's just because it's just the way the platform helps you to make connections with people. And like I said, the most amount of time that I spend is the time that people don't see is in my DMs, interacting with people and getting to know them. And I think a lot of dentists they think it's all about what you put out, but it's also like what you put in.
Got it. And then what do you think about the future? Like, where do you see this all going? So if I fast forward 10 years and you're doing everything that you're doing right now, but you just keep going down this road, what will that world look like for you, for Dr. Joyce?
I don't know necessarily yet. I don't know if Instagram will be around in even 2 years. I don't bank on that necessarily. So I'm always building out my own audiences, like having a newsletter, or I'm trying to keep in touch with the people that I've met on Instagram. But I know that it's not going to be forever. I've also realized that I may have had my moment on Instagram, but I'm not going to be like the one to follow for forever. You just have to be really realistic with yourself. Ultimately, I want to get to a place where I don't necessarily need to play by the rules of a platform, and I haven't necessarily figured that out yet. But I don't really know what I want in the future. What I do want, my ideal life, which is not going to make any sense to anyone, is I want to be able to exist in the virtual world where whatever I do is more of an entity and nobody needs me to be anywhere. I just exist. That doesn't make any sense. I know.
That's
Sounds
awesome.
like I'm a
No, it
lunatic,
totally.
but
No. I totally get that. I totally understand what you're saying. And what I will say, just for the audience sake, what you're talking about there, where you're not playing by the rules of these platforms, what most people don't realize if they've never been on social media personally, where they're building content, is that you build up a following and then Instagram or Facebook or TikTok can just take that away from you to have the ability to reach those people. And a lot of times they do that because they just want ad money. So, and you never know when they're going to do it or how they're going to do it or how they're going to change their algorithm. So if you don't have a way to reach back out to your audience, you could just lose that overnight. And that's a real thing when you're creating content. So you're building a lot of those bridges where you're like, okay, I'm going to build a newsletter. I'm going to build other ways that I can reach people and stay in contact with them. So that makes a ton of sense. Is there anything you would like to share with the audience that you're doing right now that you think would be useful for them?
Yeah, I actually have a newsletter. I started it not too long ago, maybe a month or two ago, but it's doing really well. And I've always wanted to have a newsletter, but I didn't want to add one thing more on my plate that I couldn't stay consistent with. And I also wanted it to be like informative for dentists, for them to actually sign up, because I know not everyone wants to know about like the ins and outs of my life. Like I don't want to update people on my life. I want to bring them some sort of value. So what I ended up making is something called Viral Pop. It's a newsletter. And every week I just find videos that have gone viral online, and then I deconstruct why those videos went viral. So
that's really
I
cool.
feel like it's helpful for dentists to like learn how videos are made. A lot of them really struggle with showing up on social media with their videos, and a lot of the videos that dentists make honestly are not very good. but they don't know why they're not performing. And so I'm hoping that like these little analysis things that I do help them to improve. And again, it's not about like being the best when you first start, but as long as you're learning all the time and becoming a student of the game, you will get to a place where you're making like banger videos. And hopefully we all win on Instagram. There's enough room for all of us.
100%. How do people get onto that newsletter? What's the best way to connect on that?
I have a link I can give you.
Okay, awesome. We'll put the link down below wherever you're listening, whether it's on YouTube or if you're listening audio wise. What's your website that they'd be able to find that if they're just listening audio?
JoyceTheDentist.com.
Joyce the
Or they
Dentist.
can
Okay,
DM
perfect.
me too. I think that it's like a side landing page.
Got it. Okay. I follow what you're saying. Awesome. Well, it's been really, really good having you on. Thank you so much for letting me ask you all these questions and giving me a peek behind the curtain, and continue to do an awesome job. I know you don't think you're special, but you obviously are. And I think that's one of the things that makes you special, is that you are out here just trying things and just working super hard to be successful. And it's coming into real life. And it's really awesome for me to see somebody I get to meet online and then get to have on a podcast and talk through. And you're super nice and super cool. So I appreciate that.
Thank you, Gary. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. Thank you. Boom. All right. So we kind of did both in that. So we story part of it, and then we filmed some more tactical